Hi there, my name is Layla and welcome to this. Today I'm going to be analyzing a poem called Libertatis Sacra. I don't know, I'm just gonna Google say it for me because
Libertatis Sacra
Libertatis Sacra.
Libertatis Sacra
I can't say it. Anyway, it's a poem by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde. Wow, Oscar Wilde. Bit about the poet. Oscar Wilde, one of my favorite quotes from him is "Life imitates art." Anyway, he was born in Dublin in 1854. He died in 1900 in Paris. He studied at Oxford, became a writer, a playwright. He was interested in art and involved in rising philosophy and aesthetics. A genius in literature whose works challenged common ideas of society during his life. He was known for his acclaimed works, including The Picture of Dorian Gray. Oh my god, that book was like, wow. I'm sure whoever studied it never, I don't know, it was just intense to be written those downs. Dorian Gray, the importance of being earnest, as well as his brilliant wit and flamboyant style, and infamous imprisonment for homosexuality. So he was involved in everything during his time. He was such a good writer. I admire his work. Okay, so we can get into the poem. So this poem it translates to liberty hunger, a hunger for freedom. It was written during the Victorian period, but it still has relevance today. If you don't know politics, this may widen your perspective. It's a political poem. Um, he's just putting his perspective out there. And this is what it is. I'm not gonna be focused I'm focusing mainly on the theory, like his ideas that he's putting out. I'm not focusing on the poetic devices and stuff like that. Although the rhyme scheme we see is A B B C A C C A B D B E E D. The rhyme scheme. Um, but we see first half of the poem full. This is how I interpreted it. The first, because I couldn't find anything on the poem, so this is how I did it. The first 8 lines I thought was his political thought and perspective relating to the construction of society and challenging democratic systems of socialism and favors a dictatorship. So this poem initially has the perspectives of a dictatorship and a democracy. Dictatorship would be a more like how do I say it word autocratic style, and then a democracy would be like everyone was agreeing on something like voting. But dictatorship would just be like one rule: you do this, that. Anyway, so let us see, going into it, lines 1 to 4, let's do 5. Albeit nurtured in democracy, albeit meaning although nurtured in democracy, and like in best that state republican, where every man is king-like and no man is crowned above his fellows, yet he sees, spite of this modern freight for liberty. So although we nurtured in democracy, he sees this in democracy. He sees that democracy isn't as equal as it seems to be. Democracy brings out this class system within society. an imperial system drenched in competition whereby people are caught up in the illusion of thinking that they have to be better than one another without realizing the uniqueness and authenticity of themselves and others. So democracy brings out this competition, first, second, third. I have the nicest car, I have the nicest house, my house is the biggest, blah blah blah. I get paid this much, whatever. So that's what he sees in democracy. And there is truth in that. There is truth. um, it all depends on perspective. Okay, despite for this modern freight for liberty, while in all of this he sees this true fading away of liberty. So while democracy does pose this thing, he sees that liberty, the true freedom of people, is like fading away. And it's ironic actually, since democracy gives people freedom of choice. And yeah, let's continue. Better the rule of one whom all obey than to let clamorous demagogues betray our freedom with the kiss of anarchy. So, better the rule of one. So, yeah, he's referring to a dictatorship. Better the rule of one whom all obey. So, it's better to have a dictatorship, he says, than to let those people in power betray our freedom with the kiss of fighting anarchy, like not delivering the action which they talk about and promise to people. It goes in hand with the fading away with freedom. So he says he favors a democracy instead. No, he says he favors a dictatorship over democracy. Okay, and then moving on, we see a turning point in perspective. Wherefore I love them not whose hand profane plant the red flag upon the piled up street, for no right cause beneath a whose ignorant reign art, culture, reverence, honor, all things fade. And then he says, okay, you know what? Wherefore I love them not whose hands profane. Now he refers to both of them, a democracy and a dictatorship. Plant the red flag upon the piled up street. They both have red flags. For no right cause beneath a whose ignorant reign, it doesn't matter, like, for what it's worth, and regardless. To both operations of society, they both promote this, uniformity, paternalism, the structure of power. He says that, now they both have this sort of power on people. Arts and culture, reverence, honor, all things fade. In its turn, because of this ruling of people, arts and culture and reverence and honor fades away, in the essence, the fundamentalism of freedom of expression fades away, regardless if you're in a democracy or a dictatorship. Doesn't matter, they fade away. They pose this thing of dying liberty. Moving on, save treason and the dagger of her trade, or murder with his silent bloody feet. So, dagger of her trade, referring to how economic, social systems are in place to benefit a few. The imbalance is apparent in both of the society, depending how you view it. All about perspective. The dagger emphasizes the sudden apparentness of the imbalance in these economic systems. I said, since the dagger can be used swiftly and suddenly to initiate that, because a dagger is like a knife is sharp, and you can kill someone with it pretty quick. And then you see dagger would be swiftly, and then goes on the last line, silent bloody feet. So regardless it would be, regardless of it being swift, regardless of the death being quick or silent, it will still kill. It still kills freedom. Or, indicating the couplet, line 14 and 13. Contrast the mood with the word silent, yet the idea remains the same, referring to the systems put in place by society to benefit a few. Either is a blatant, apparent point of sight or a secretive act of corruption that is covered up like an act of murder. So that was the poem, and summing it up, Wilde raises the question on democracy. He doesn't see it as being a just system whereby he mentions the idea of imperialism and a class system. He believes in itself. It is an illusion denying people their true freedom. He favors a dictatorship first over a democracy, as he believes it. The politicians do not betray people and there's some sort of equality. Yet, he goes on by saying he doesn't care for both of them. He goes on by saying, no, I don't care for both of them. Since, in essence, art, culture, reverence, honor, the true essence, the fundamental of freedom and liberty is taken away, they fade under the systems put in place. As long as there's someone in control, he says, of you freedom, you won't have that freedom to express, to create, to honor your true self. You might be artistic, but then hey, you have to go to school, you have to learn math, you have to do this, you have to do that, but you're not really a maths person. And then in the additional reading, I just looked up that the society Wilde imagines us in all respects the opposite of that. It is one which the arts and the sciences and the whole of the intellectual life prospers, a society without property, prisons, or crime, in which no one is hungry and machines do all the dirty, distasteful, tedious work. So it's not man who's doing it, it's machines, it's our inventions that we create. It's not, a class system like, you on top, then me, then me, then me, then you, whatever. He wants it to be holistically balanced out of freedom. It is, in short, a society which everyone is free to choose his or her own path and flourish in her or his own way to prosper, not in petty financial terms, but in terms of character and morals. Because, imagine if you could just base things on people's character, it would be so much more authentic. While socialism, and it is a form of socialism, represents socialism in the service of individualism. It is a socialism based more in aesthetic ideals than in economic theories. It takes as its model the artist. So, his view of freedom, his perspective, he believes regardless if we're in a democracy or a dictatorship, regardless of whichever system we're in, there'll always be that fading away of freedom because we're being ruled, because we're under a system, because, you have to do things, and that's his perspective, that's his idea, and I saw this poem and I wanted to do it. I didn't know what it was about, I just read through it, but I hope I made sense with it. I don't know if it's actually studied. I just felt like doing it because it interested me, and that was the poem, and I hope I made sense, and love to hear your comments on it. Thank you for listening, thank you for being up to this point, and thank you. See you soon. Goodbye.